Welcome to the World Massage Conference.
Hello and welcome to this special pre-conference broadcast for the 2011 World Massage Conference. I'm your host, Eric Brown, along with my co-host, Cliff Korn. I want to welcome everyone on board for this presentation with renowned massage expert Diana Thompson on insurance billing for massage therapists. Need to know information for getting paid. Before we get into our broadcast, we'd like to thank our global sponsor, Massage Envy. Massage Envy is the leading employer of massage therapists in the United States. To discover the benefits of choosing Massage Envy as your career, visit their website at www.massageenvycareers.com. And thanks so much to all our daily sponsors that make all this possible: Associated Bodywork and Massage Professionals, Massage Warehouse, Massage Today, Bon Vital, BioFreeze, Massage Magazine, and the Upledger Institute. Here tonight on World Massage Conference, for the start of our Fall 2011 conference program, we bring you one of the world's top leaders in the massage industry, Diana Thompson. In this webinar, Diana Thompson will provide easy-to-follow guidelines for reducing the risks associated with accepting insurance reimbursement as payment for services and for staying on top of the shifting information of insurance procedures. Understand the paper trails necessary for providing clean claims and learn strategies for managing reimbursement challenges specific to each of the three primary types of insurance: workers' compensation, personal injury, and private health insurance. Diana will also examine legal and ethical considerations for setting fees and billing for services. It's my pleasure to introduce Diana Thompson. She's a licensed massage therapist with more than 25 years of experience, enjoying success in her private practice in the beautiful city of Seattle, Washington. She's the author of Hands Heal, Communication, Documentation, and Insurance Billing for Manual Therapists, which is now in its third edition. She's the immediate past president of the Massage Therapy Foundation, a wonderful organization, and she's a consultant for massage therapy research with the Center for Health Studies. Diana, it's a pleasure to have you here at the World Massage Conference.
It's great to be here, Eric. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, we're really excited about this broadcast. As I was saying before the broadcast started, I believe you hold the world's record for the most live attendees on a massage webinar. So people are very interested in insurance, and I'm sure they have lots of questions. And I have Cliff Korn on the line as my co-host tonight, and he's going to be taking listener questions. So if anyone in the audience has any questions, you'll see a blue Ask Question button on the broadcast screen. All you need to do is click that button, enter in your question for Diana, and Cliff will be going through those, and he'll pose those to you towards the end of this broadcast, and we'll get to as many of those questions as possible. So if you have insurance questions, make sure to ask them. Take advantage of this opportunity. There's no one that knows insurance like Diana. So I'm going to hand the mic over to you, Diana, now, and I'm going to leave the audience in your capable hands.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and thank you, Cliff. It's great to work with you on this program. Yeah. So what I really think is foremost in people's mind when it comes to insurance billing is getting paid. So that's going to be the focus of today. I'm going to start out talking about the different types of insurance and how you might know if something is available to you as an option for billing. And then we're going to talk about questions that you might want to ask yourself to consider really to see if insurance billing is something that's right for you, and then to see if insurance billing is something that's actually an option for you. And then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of what you absolutely need to do in order to make sure that you're going to get paid by these insurance companies. So if we can go to the first slide after the introduction slide. There are three primary types of insurance reimbursement that's possible for massage therapists. The most common one is for motor vehicle collisions, or it's called personal injury. And we often used to see motor vehicle accident. So for those of you that are still using MVA, I just want you to know that the current buzz term is now motor vehicle collision, because I don't want to seem like it was just an accident, that nobody's at fault. They're actually trying to find some fault here. So motor vehicle collision is the proper term these days. The other type that you might see second most commonly is workers' compensation, often known as labor and industry claims. And then, of course, the final one is private health. And not every state will entertain insurance bills from massage therapists in the private health sector. But for those of you that can bill within the private health system, I want to give you some hot tips on how to work with them. So the next slide gets into the different types of motor vehicle collision or personal injury insurance that you need to know about. Your primary hope is that people have PIP or personal injury protection. It's what makes sure that people's medical bills get paid, as well as getting paid for services for things they can no longer do. For example, if people aren't able to clean their house, they should be able to hire a housekeeper to come in and clean for them. If they can't drive, they should get some reimbursement for taxi services, those kinds of things. So PIP is one of those all-encompassing insurance coverages that you hope people have when they come and see you. It means that regardless of fault, you're going to get paid. All of you should know what your PIP coverage is. A great way to kind of introduce yourself to PIP insurance is to go to your own policies and see what kind of coverage. In some states, you have to deny PIP coverage in writing, so it's actually mandatory for insurance companies to provide you with PIP insurance, and you have to sign a waiver that says, no thanks, I don't need PIP coverage. PIP is one of the cheapest forms of insurance, and so you want to max out your benefits. So rather than going and paying, $10 every quarter for $10,000 worth of coverage, you want to pay the $30 a quarter and get $30,000 or $50,000 worth of coverage, because that money gets used up pretty darn quickly. MedPay is different than PIP in that it just covers your medical expenses. If there's no PIP, no MedPay, then you're looking at third-party payment, which means you don't get paid until the case settles. That means fault has to be determined. You might wait 1 year in some states. You might wait 3 years in other states before you see a penny of the money. So third-party claims are something you really have to think about before you decide to take on a patient who only has third-party coverage. coverage is underinsured motorist or uninsured motorist. So it's an additional policy onto your claim or whoever the driver is that says, even if I get hit by someone who doesn't have any insurance, I want to make sure that my expenses are paid for. So that's where your uninsured motorist insurance comes in. It's great when there's a legal team involved. If this is a litigation kind of claim, so often people think of motor vehicle collisions as a litigation insurance relationship. If you have a lawyer, or if your your client has a lawyer that they've got contracted with, you can get a guarantee of payment. So this means that the lawyer has to pay you before they pay the patient. It's something that absolutely everyone should do, regardless of how much you trust your patient. So anytime there's a lawyer involved, get a guarantee of payment. It will also help you if they try and negotiate for a lower fee. Sometimes the attorney will call you up and say, hey, the patient's only getting so much money. Why don't you cut your fees down? And you can say, I'm sorry, you signed a guarantee of payment or a letter of guarantee that says you will pay me my fees in full. And then you won't have to go through that negotiation process, because you can bet they're not negotiating their fees from the patient for their car accident claim. So another thing you can do to help ensure that you get paid is to file a lien. So liens are filed with the county government. So wherever the accident took place, that's the county that you want to file the lien within. So what you do there is you say, I'm putting a lien on whatever this person owns. It might be their house, something like that, that says if they don't pay you, then you've got something to negotiate with. It's that bargaining tool. If you've got any third-party claims, you'll definitely want to file liens with the county government. So that's what I recommend to make sure you get paid if you do choose to work with third-party personal injury cases. The other thing you really want to be careful of when you're working with motor vehicle collisions are independent medical exams. So oftentimes the insurance company will hire a doctor to do an examination of the patient to say, oh, this person's better, they're fine, they don't need any more treatment. So an attorney can really help negotiate the independent medical exam situation to make sure they're actually doing an exam, that when they write up the report, they're writing up information that they actually ask the patient, those kinds of things. Because sometimes they'll just spend a couple of minutes with the patient, say they did all these tests, and really they didn't do a very thorough examination. So those are reasons you like to have a legal team involved. Next slide. So with workers' compensation claims or labor and industry claims, there's typically a contract that you sign with that government agency. So it becomes a contractual relationship. You get a provider number, and when you bill that insurance company, you use your provider number, and that's what gives you access to that type of insurance reimbursement. There's a difference between state and federal insurance companies. Sometimes an organization will choose to go through the state. Sometimes if they do business in many states, they'll choose to go through the federal government. So not every L&I claim is the same. So you'll want to be familiar with both types of relationships and make sure that you've got a good contractual relationship with both. When you sign a contract with them, they get to stipulate fee schedules, treatment frequency, your reporting, and what type of billing forms. Most insurance uses the CMS 1500 form. We'll talk about those in a little bit. But oftentimes with workers' compensation, they have their own type of billing forms that they want you to use. So make sure you've got those forms on hand and that all your bills go through using the exact forms that they want you to use. With treatment frequency, a lot of times they'll recommend 6 massages, and then you have to ask for another set of 6. It's fairly easy to get your second set of 6. It's nearly impossible to get a third set of 6. So you're pretty much guaranteed when you're working with L&I that you'll get 6 sessions with your patient and possibly 12. You will always have to write a progress report before you get that second set of 6. In the next slide, we're going to look at private health insurance. Sometimes those are called HMOs, or health maintenance organizations. Many of the different insurance companies have several insurance plans. So you might think, well, I've got 5 people on Regents. It's probably the same with each one, and that's not necessarily the case. So Regents might have 6 different plans that they're insureds, or lives, as they call them, that their lives could prescribe to or subscribe to. So make sure that you understand the differences between the different insurance plans. I'm going to take you through in a few minutes a step-by-step process so that you know exactly what your patient can get, even if they have a different insurance plan than someone else. So we want to make sure we know exactly what's required. So with a contractual relationship in an HMO or a private health, they're going to dictate the fees. So whenever you sign up for them, you're agreeing to their fee schedule. They might have reporting requirements as well, and they certainly will ask for access to your charts at no charge. So you can't charge them a per-page copying fee if they want copies of the charts or anything like that. Everything's included in your contractual relationship with a network. You should read those contracts very carefully. There might be restrictions in them on who you can treat. For example, you might not be able to treat anyone that's in your immediate family, and that's important to know. There are also restrictions for who can bill under a particular provider number. So you might go to work for Cliff, for example. Cliff says, well, I have a provider relationship with Regents. You can just bill under my number. But it might stipulate within Cliff's contract that he cannot loan his provider number to anyone, even if they're an employee of his. If he does that and it's against his contract, not only could he lose his contract with Regents, but you would also be barred from ever becoming a contractual provider for that insurance company. So read your contracts very closely. Some insurance companies have an out-of-network benefit. What that means is that even though you're not contracted with that particular insurance company, they'll reimburse for your services, and the patient pays a co-insurance amount instead of a co-pay amount. So they might pay 30% or 40%, and then the insurance company will pay you the 70% or 60%. Whereas with a contract situation, they'll pay their copay, which may be a $10 copay, $20 copay, that kind of thing, and then you'll get the remainder. So those are the three different types of insurance relationships that you could be in. The next slide is really asking yourself these questions. Do I want to accept insurance reimbursement as payment? What am I getting myself into? One reason that I always think is very motivating for taking insurance is whether or not you need more clients. Once you become a contracted entity with an insurance company, they are going to send you a ton of clients. I have found myself in a situation where I've had to leave some insurance companies because they ask that you have a certain amount of your practice open for their lives, their covered entities. So there was just no way I could hold open 30% of my practice for this particular insurance plan. So I chose to leave this one network for that reason, but that may be a very motivating reason for you. It's kind of like going to Home Depot instead of a local hardware store. You're getting this huge access to this huge organization that can just send you a ton of clients, and you don't have to do any sort of marketing. As a result, though, they're going to pay you less. So like when you go into Home Depot, you don't pay as much for your electric saw or whatever, and as you would if you went into a local mom-and-pop hardware store, because they're getting it for a lot less when they're buying in bulk. So they're kind of buying you in bulk. So then you need to also consider, can I survive if I get paid a lower fee? So if I really do take these people on and I don't have as much room for cash clients, can I still survive? So then you're looking at, do I charge less money for my cash clients? Do the insurance company actually pay me more, or are they paying me substantially less than I'm getting from my cash clients? The other question to ask is, can I wait to get paid? They'll typically pay on a every 2-week or every 30-day cycle. So once you get into the system, the checks come fairly regularly. But before you get into that regular system, sometimes you feel like you're just waiting a long time to get paid. With PI cases, it's a little different. If it's an end-of-settlement case, of course, you're not going to see any money until the case settles, which could be anywhere from 1 year to 3 years from your date of first service. But otherwise, if they've got personal injury protection or PIP, you'll get paid on a regular basis. So it kind of often depends on how soon you get your bills in as well. So if you're billing weekly, you might get paid on a weekly basis with PIP. If you're billing once a month, you're only going to get paid once a month. L&I seems to be, or workers' comp seems to be on an every 2-week cycle as well. So mostly with L&I and with your private health, you're going to get paid on a 2-week cycle. The other questions you want to ask yourself, am I willing to do the chart notes that are necessary? You have to do some medical charting, and you have to write reports to the insurance companies and the referring doctors. And do I understand the legal and ethical billing requirements? Because you want to make sure you're not committing billing fraud in these situations. We're going to go through those as well so that you know what you're getting into. And then you want to ask, do I want to provide the billing services or do I want to hire that service out? So I did my own billing service for a long time, and then I did it for a large clinic. And actually for the last few years I've been using a billing service. So that's been really nice. I stay in touch with them and do a lot of consulting with them. So I know I'm still on top of what the needs are for insurance billing out there, but it's kind of nice to have someone else that does the billing on a weekly basis. In the next slide, you want to make sure you're eligible for insurance reimbursement. If you're in a state where other massage therapists are having success billing insurance, then you can pretty well be sure that you're going to have success as well. But not every state has access to private health insurance. I don't know any states that don't allow motor vehicle collision insurance billing for massage therapists. It's one of those situations where legally they're required to have the patient get back to pre-existing condition or pre-existing status. And if the physician or whoever is the primary care provider prescribes a particular type of treatment, the insurance must comply with that prescription within reason, and they will hire those independent medical examinations to make sure that what they're paying for is actually absolutely necessary for that person to get back to pre-injury status. So check into all of those different types of insurance, both the motor vehicle collision or PI, the L&I, and the private health within the state. So any of your networking groups that you've got going on would be a great place to check in. In some situations, you can be under the supervision of another licensed healthcare provider and use their billing information, so they might bill for you. In some places, a chiropractor might hire you. They would do the billing. They would bill under their number and then pay you as an employee. So that often is the case. So make sure that that's acceptable. I would call the insurance plan itself and make sure that you're allowed to have your services billed under someone else's provider number. And ideally, you can become the credentialed provider. In the next slide, there are certain things that you need to ask the insurance company to know if you can bill their insurance. So when you call up their insurance number on the back of their insurance card, these are the questions you're going to ask. So you'll ask about the client's condition to see if it's covered under their insurance plan. Not all conditions are covered conditions, so make sure if they've got fibromyalgia or cancer or whatever it might be, that it's something that is covered under their insurance plan. The second question you're going to ask is if they have a physical medicine and rehabilitation benefit for that particular type of condition. So massage therapy falls under physical medicine and rehab, and you want to make sure that they have that as a covered benefit for that condition. Thirdly, you'll ask who can provide that physical medicine and rehab service. Can a licensed massage therapist do that? The next thing you'll want to know is which CPT codes or current procedural terminology codes are reimbursable, and we'll go through some of those codes in just a minute. And are there any restrictions on those codes? Sometimes they'll say, well, you can only bill for 2 units under that code or 4 units under that code. So even though you might be accustomed to doing a 60-minute massage or a 90-minute massage, they may only say you can do a 30-minute massage, depending on what the condition is. So know what those restrictions are. I would also always ask what the reimbursable amount is for those CPT codes. So we're going to talk about those CPT codes next, so we're on the next slide. So I just put a few of them up for you. These are the ones that most likely you will bill or most likely they will reimburse. There are several other codes available, and some people have success using those codes, but not always. So these are the ones that pretty much most insurance companies will reimburse for. The first one is the primary insurance code. This is the massage therapy CPT code 97124. So it's for Swedish massage, effleurage, petrissage, tapotement, that type of treatment. 97140 is a manual therapy code. This means that you can provide services like myofascial release or lymphatic drainage or craniosacral therapy. All of those codes go under 97140. You cannot bill anyone with those two codes together. There's something called CCI coding or NCCI coding. It's a bundling issue. You cannot bundle those codes because they're too similar. So they're going to say, really pick one. So which one are you doing more of? Out of a 15-minute unit, so most of these are 15-minute unit codes, is more of the time spent with Swedish massage, or is more of the time spent with myofascial release, for example? And then you pick that code. 97112 is more of a postural re-education code. So it's really pretty much an active movement technique that you're going to be doing. Muscle energy technique would go under this, or those passive positional release, strain counterstrain type moves, Feldenkrais, Alexander, Traeger, all of those are billed under 97112. I've also found that the kinesio taping or the postural taping or functional taping people are using these days often gets billed under 97112. 97010 is for hot-cold therapy. This is not done in units of time. The first three are done in 15-minute units. But 97010 is just a one-time thing. So you can't bill twice for 97010 in a session. It's just the application of hot packs or cold packs or both, and it's just a one-time code. The last two codes I have found more success with recently. I've really been on the lookout for an exam code because you often spend more time with people the first time you see someone, or on those reevaluation sessions. It would be nice to get paid for that extra time that it takes to go through your range of motion testing, your postural assessment, those kinds of things. And I think I have finally found the codes that work the best for massage therapy. There have been some physical therapy codes that I've recommended in the past, but some people have not had very good success with those, even though I have up here in Washington State. But these codes consistently have been working. So if you want to try them, go right ahead. They're also not units, so they would be in addition to. So if you did a 60-minute manual therapy session, so it would be 4 codes or 4 units of 97140, you would just add 99201 as a new patient exam on top of that. So it would just be additional fee. It's not an additional amount of time. So it's kind of handy that way. In the next slide, we've got something called ICD-9 Codes. So when we were talking earlier about the questions you would ask the insurance company, oftentimes they'll ask for an ICD-9 code instead of the name of the condition. So if it's fibromyalgia, then they would ask for the ICD-9 code that's associated with that diagnosis. So most of us, when we're billing insurance company, we're working off of a physician prescription or a physician referral. In some situations, you can self-refer to massage therapy. It's very rare, but there are a few plans up here in Washington State, I know, where you can self-refer to massage therapy. If there isn't a diagnosis from a physician, so we can't call things by a diagnostic term because we don't have that scope of practice, but we certainly can call things by the symptoms that we're seeing. So I thought I'd throw in some symptom codes in here. So if someone's asking for a diagnosis code, but you know they're coming in with neck pain, absolutely that's something that we can say people have without thinking that we're crossing over our scope of practice. So I put in neck pain diagnosis code, or ICD-9 code of 723.1 in there. So there's several in there for pain, stiffness, and swelling, all within our scope of practice, all diagnosis codes you can feel comfortable using if you're in that situation. Always the best thing to do is get a prescription from a healthcare provider so that you don't have to create those codes on your own. In the next slide, it's also good to ask the insurance representative when you're on the phone with them what else they might want. So you're going to send them the CMS 1500 form, unless it's an L&I claim, in which case they've got their own billing forms. But find out if they want copies of your SOAP charts, copies of the prescription, if they need any copies of the reports that you've been sending the doctor on a periodic basis, anything that will help you get paid faster. If you can get that information up front, then you won't have to risk that delay time as they ask for more information on the back end. I also want to know what the turnaround time is for reimbursement and if there's anything that could affect that time frame. So I want to make sure I'm covering all of my bases and getting paid as fast as I possibly can. In the next slide, there are some things I'm going to have the client find out because I think it's really important to get them involved in the insurance process. They need to take some responsibility. These are really good questions for them to find out and ask. So have them call the number on the back of their insurance card and ask what their deductible is and how much has been satisfied to date. If it hasn't been satisfied, then you're not going to bill the insurance company until it is. So you'll want to get paid up front and then submit those bills, and the money that they paid you will count towards their deductible. You also want to know what the co-pay or co-insurance is. So remember, co-pay, they'll pay if you're a contracted provider. Co-insurance, they'll pay if you're an out-of-network provider, and they're going to pay a percentage of your fee. There is no co-pay and no co-insurance with motor vehicle collision insurance coverage. So they're going to pay the total amount, the insurance company. They don't dictate the fees. You're going to get paid what you charge, and we'll talk more about that later too because there are some sticky points with that. Also with L&I, they won't let you take any money from the patient as well. So the L&I is going to pay their full fee, and you can't get any additional fees from the patient. You'll want the patient to ask what their limits of their coverage is. Do they only get 12 massages a year? Do they get 60 massages a year? What's the annual amount, but also what's the per incident amount, because it could be different. Ask them if they need pre-authorization for massage and if they can verify the coverage for the massage while they're on the phone with their insurance provider right then. So those are the types of questions you want to get the patient involved in asking. Make sure that you have your patients, so we're looking at the next slide now on responsibility of payment. Make sure you have your patients sign something that says they understand that they are fully responsible for your fees if the insurance company does not come through. You don't want to be left holding the bag if the insurance company denies the claim or their deductible hasn't been met, so they're not paying you anything like that. You just want to make sure that the client understands that if the insurance company doesn't pay, that they're responsible for everything. You also want them to sign on, there'll be a little line that in your billing form, and I've got some samples of billing forms in my book that I can share with you, that they are authorizing the insurance company to pay you directly. You never want the insurance company to send the payments to the patient because then, they've got the money in hand. It makes it harder for them to turn those checks over to you. So assign the benefits directly to you. You also want the client to sign a release with you so that you can send medical records to the insurance company should they ask for them. That's confidential information, and you need their permission to be able to send the insurance company that type of healthcare information. That's a HIPAA requirement. So get the patients to sign a release of medical records.
Okay,
the next chart, yes.
I know this is a little bit of a longer session, so maybe I can just give you a few minutes to catch your breath. I've done a couple long webinars myself for the past little while, so I just want to grab a little drink of water. I know we're going to talk. I know you're going to talk more about charting requirements and making a clean claim so that you make sure you get paid, and you're going to talk about the ethics of charting as well. So I just want to take just a few minutes just to remind people that if you do have any questions that aren't being answered here on the broadcast tonight, then just click the Ask Question button that you'll see just below the broadcast screen and send any questions you have in to Diana. She's very knowledgeable, as you know already, and she'll get to any questions that she doesn't answer specifically through this formal presentation. And my co-host, Cliff Korn, will join us, and he'll field those questions.
Hey, Eric, just a quick question. Since we started a few minutes late, do I still need to end at 1:45 or can I go till 10 till?
Well, oh no, you can keep going. We have we have an hour and a half scheduled altogether tonight.
All right.
So you have time. You don't have to rush with the rest of it.
I know I'm talking really fast, aren't I? There's so much to get through.
It's perfect. Yeah, there's lots of information there. And make sure you stick around after the Q&A session or the question and answer session, because, Diana, you're going to go into the chat room and talk with the participants there as well and answer any other questions they have. Now, if some people in the chat room have been asking, is a recording going to be available? This is a pre-conference broadcast, so we're going to keep a replay available for about 24 hours to let people access it, and then it's going to be archived for the paid registrants of the conference, and that will be available in the replay room. So if you haven't signed up yet for the 2011 conference program, I want to encourage you to do so. Do it tonight. You can get, you'll have access to really over 40 of the world's leading massage experts between the recorded spring sessions and the live sessions that are happening November 14th to the 16th. And the 2011 program is really like the Academy Awards night of massage. These are all the superstars who you've always wanted to meet. And you can interact with most of them one-on-one through asking them questions on the broadcast like we're doing tonight, or through chat after their presentations. Superstars like Diana Thompson. Now, a few other featured presenters we have are Eric Dalton. You might have heard of him. Thomas Myers, Aaron Mattis, who does active isolated stretching. Robert Schleip, who's going to be talking to us about fascia. Tracy Walton, massage and cancer. Robert Granter, a great therapist from Australia, who's going to be talking to us about sports massage. Laura Allen, who everyone knows. Diana Thompson, who we have here tonight, and many, many more. And you can, registrants can take CE quizzes and print off certificates for each of these presentations as well. And I think they are all NCB, TMB specific credits. Now, there's a one small-time fee of $40 for, I believe, over 50 hours of continuing education certificates. Now, we know that not everyone signs up specifically for the credits, but it's a fantastic opportunity, and these days most organizations recognize at least some online continuing education credits, if not all. So once again, I want to encourage you to sign up for the World Massage Conference 2011 and get access. So how are you doing there, Diana? Are you ready to move on?
I'm good. Thank you for giving me a
fantastic.
moment. That was awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to hand the mic back over to you again, and we can talk about charting now.
Thank you. So we're on the charting requirements slide. This is really, it of course would not be me on the telephone if I didn't talk about charting, so you'll have to forgive me for just a moment as I go off onto my favorite topic in the world, charting. What's absolutely necessary when you're billing an insurance company is to chart in a way that proves medical necessity. What that means is that you've got to chart that this person has a medical condition, and then you have to chart that that medical condition was affected by your relationship with that patient. So your intake form is going to demonstrate that they've got these symptoms. Your subjective information gathering will document how they're feeling, what functional limitations they might have, difficulties with their activities of daily living. You'll probably use a pain scale, something that will measure the level of pain that they're having, especially with specific activities. So you've got to prove that they have a medical condition, one that massage therapy can affect. The next thing you're going to do is prove progress as a result of the care, which means that you have to have enough measurable information that you can show a change over time. So, for example, if you're charting on a pain scale of 0 to 10, they come in and they've got pain that is a 7 out of 10. By the end of the series of sessions, that pain should change on that scale of 0 to 10 significantly. So that has to be by 2 points or more. So down to a 5 out of 10, hopefully even further down the scale. Most insurance companies now are looking for functional outcomes. That means that you have to document what activities are limited by their condition and how those activities have improved as a result of your relationship. For example, if people are having difficulty sitting at their computer for a length of time, it might be that they're having numbness and tingling down the arms. So how long can they sit at their computer before the numbness increases or the numbness starts? And then how long can they sit at their computer at the end of the series of massages or halfway through the series of massages before the numbness begins or the numbness gets worse? So always try and relate their symptoms back to an activity of daily living. That's the best way that you can prove progress for physical conditions, rehab-type services. You always want to treat within the diagnosis. So your chart should not reflect working in an unrelated part of the body. If you're working with carpal tunnel syndrome, for example, since we're using that concept, you don't want to be working on the calf muscle, for example. The lower leg might not have anything to do with their carpal tunnel condition. If you do work in that area, your reports and your charts should reflect the reasons why you chose to work there. So the more fascia work that we do these days, we're really looking at the full body connection of the fascia, crossing joints, those kinds of things. So you just better be able to justify your treatments if you're working outside of the area of diagnosis. Your treatments must reflect the dates of services billed. So every one of your treatment notes has to be dated, and those dates must, I know this seems like a silly thing for me to say, but I can't tell you how many times I've looked at charts and the date is not the same date on the chart as it is on the billing form. So make sure that the dates are correct and that the services are correct. So if you are billing for a hot-cold pack, the hot-cold pack better be written on the SOAP chart. If you're billing for lymphatic drainage and not Swedish massage, lymphatic drainage, it better be listed on your SOAP chart. So you want to make sure the dates are accurate from SOAP chart to bill and that the services provided are accurate from SOAP chart to the bill. Every date of service should reflect the duration of the session as well. So if you're doing a 30-minute treatment or a 60-minute treatment, make sure that that is also written on the SOAP chart. These are the absolute requirements for SOAP charting. On the next slide, I'm going to tell you what the recommendations are for SOAP charting. So you want to have a comprehensive health history. You really want to know not only about this particular condition, but if there's any pre-existing conditions or any family history of other conditions. It might be that you're working with a particular thing, but some complication arises. And if you have a good, sound health history background, you can figure out why what is happening is actually happening. So it will give you some really good information and allow you to troubleshoot some difficult situations. You absolutely want a medical record for every single session that you do. there's a difference between charting for a medical condition and charting for wellness. So you do not necessarily have to use a SOAP chart when you're charting for someone who's just looking for prevention or wellness services. But if you're charting for a medical condition, SOAP charting is a very common form to use. There's other types of formats that you can use as well, but it should be a medical chart and not a wellness chart. You want to make sure that you measure the information that you're writing down. If it's worth writing down, it's worth measuring. You never just want to say that they have a headache. You never just want to say that they have an elevated shoulder. You want to assign some sort of measurement to it so that you can show progress. Without an initial evaluation with a measurement, you cannot note change unless it's gone. And oftentimes people come in and they don't go from pain to no pain. There's some variation in there, so you've got to measure it so you can show incremental progress. You also want to set goals with your patients when you're charting. Functional goals are most appropriate for massage therapy and physical medicine and rehab services. And make sure that those goals reflect some measurable progress. The example that I gave earlier was on how much time people can sit at their computer. It could be how much weight they could lift. It could be how many stairs they can climb. It could be how many minutes they can walk, those kinds of things. But make sure that you've got some way to measure progress. And then lastly, you just want to make sure people can read your charts. There are so many great electronic software programs now that that's not as much of an issue. But if you're still handwriting your charts, they don't have to pay you if they can't read them. So make sure they're legible. Reporting is something else that comes hand in hand with doing insurance billing. You want to write progress reports every 6 to 8 sessions. So I'm now on the next slide, reporting requirements. You cannot charge for progress reports. You have a responsibility to communicate with referring caregivers. I don't know if you know this, but they're financially responsible for everything you do. For that reason alone, you owe them some updates. I've had doctors say to me, I used to refer to massage. I never heard back from them. How can I stick my neck out for you people if you're not going to send me reports? So it's not a lot of time to write a report. Really, you can do one in about 5 to 10 minutes. It could be 2 or 3 paragraphs long. You just give them an update on the progress since your last report and say you would like another prescription for more massage and what you hope to accomplish in that next series of massages. So report on the progress, ask for more massage, and tell them what your goal is for accomplishing and your plan for accomplishing those goals. The initial report will be a little bit longer, maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs, because you'll want to lay the foundation for why you're seeing them and what you found in the first session. But progress reports are very brief. You send them to the referring healthcare provider, and if the insurance companies want copies of those, they are likely to ask for that, and you're obligated to send them. If you get asked for a narrative report, that's the type of report that you can charge a fee for. So I always send them a bill first, and then they'll go, oh, no, never mind, we'll just take copies of your progress reports, and then you can get out of writing those 2 or 3 page narrative reports. Really, it's only the attorneys that are going to request those and really want them. And a good narrative report will keep you out of court. And it's no fun testifying for a patient. So a good narrative report is a great thing. And good SOAP charts are even better, because if your SOAP charts are fabulous, they won't even ask for a narrative report. On the next slide, we're going to talk about clean claims. So how do you make sure that you're sending in something that is so squeaky clean they're going to pay you without question? First rule of thumb, make sure your name, address, and phone number is on every single page in the patient's chart. If you've got a little stamp, you want to stamp the top of every single page. I can't tell you how many faxes I've gotten from insurance companies. They send over these copies of SOAP charts, and at the very bottom there's copyright Diana L. Thompson at the bottom of the SOAP chart, so they think it's my chart. But whoever the massage therapist was, there's nothing on there that identifies them. And so I know you're just getting thrown into a file that says do not pay because they don't know how to find you. So make sure your name, address, and phone number is on every page. Client identifying information should also be on every page of the chart. That's the patient's name, their date of birth, and their insurance ID number. Every single page. Make sure that your prescription covers every date of treatment. If the prescription needs to be backdated, you should send it back to the referring caregiver and say, there's a date missing on this. Maybe you could backdate it a little bit, make sure all these dates are covered. Because anything that the prescription doesn't cover, they don't have to pay for. Then make sure that your ICD-9 codes justify the treatment that you've been given. Giving. So you want to make sure that the treatment you're providing, the services you're providing those patients, match the type of services that really meet their needs for that particular diagnosis. And only submit reimbursable CPT codes. That's why you call and ask those questions in the beginning. You want to make sure you know exactly what codes they'll pay for and that you're not billing for other codes. This is actually, it can seem like a little squirrely thing to do, but oftentimes they'll bundle services. So they'll only let you, for example, bill under 97124, the Swedish massage code, but they'll say it's a bundled code and you can actually do everything that's within your scope, but that's the only code they're going to reimburse for. So that's how that works. On the next slide, a few more tips on submitting clean claims. Make sure the dates match the dates on the charts. Make sure that the treatment that you provide is within the period authorized. This is very particular to L&I or workers' compensation claims. They're going to give you an authorization date, and they're going to give you an end date. So oftentimes they'll say all services must be provided within 6 weeks. So make sure that all the dates, all the services that you're providing match that authorized time period. My best recommendation for you is that you submit bills weekly and that you don't cross months. So if you see someone at the end of May and the beginning of June, submit 2 different billing forms, one for the May dates, one for the June dates. Once you start crossing months, it gets a little tougher to get paid. Sometimes it goes into a different pile. If it gets to be too much money, sometimes it needs a second signature. So just bill every single week and within the same month. If they deny your claim and you want to appeal, make sure that you submit an appeal within the time frame that's specified. For example, I had a client who was injured in a car accident. She had a pre-existing condition, but the condition was not a problem for her until the accident. It was like all these symptoms came right back up. Even though it had been resolved before, it was exemplified by her car accident. So the insurance company denied the claim, saying it was a pre-existing condition. So I was able to submit an appeal that said she was asymptomatic before the accident. Here's the documentation to prove that. So she went to various doctors who said, yes, she was not complaining of these type of symptoms for several months, or I think in her case it was a couple of years prior to the injury. So appeals can be very successful. So I was paid 100% for her case as a result of the appeal that I submitted. So you definitely want to go through the trouble of writing an appeal if you get denied, but make sure it's within the time frame that's specified. So monitor expiration dates. If you're going to submit liens on those end-of-settlement cases, you're going to want to make sure that the dates haven't expired. Oftentimes with motor vehicle collisions, there are medical releases that are signed. So make sure that that medical release is current, so you're not sending out information that no longer is appropriate, that you no longer have permission to send. And then finally, know the statute of limitations for filing a lawsuit. In some states it's 1 year, in some states it's 3 years. So be aware of those dates and make sure that all of your bills are submitted within the time frame that's specified. In the next slide, we've got a few more reimbursement tips. I cannot emphasize this enough, but if you sound like you have a smile on your face when you're talking with insurance adjusters, I can promise you they will have a smile on their face when they respond to you. So you always get a little bit more grace, I think, with sugar than with bitterness. So make sure that you're not calling upset because you didn't get your money, but really say, I might have done something wrong here. What do you need to know in order for me to get paid? It's just a much better attitude to have. The next thing is very important and can be a little sticky. So you might get a check that pays for 5 sessions. Rather than going back to your billing ledger and just crossing off the first 5 sessions that you've billed for, make sure that the dates actually correspond. Sometimes they'll skip a date, maybe it missed in their system, something else went wrong, who knows. But if you go back and try and get payment for a session that they actually say that they did pay you for, you're going to be unsuccessful. So make sure that you're going back and asking for payment for the date that actually they missed paying you for. So line up those dates, make sure you're giving credit where credit is due and checking off those payments date by date by date. If you can file electronically, I promise you it will go so much faster than handwritten claims. They're easier to read. They get through the systems faster. It's much more convenient on both ends. So file electronically whenever possible. And if you're having trouble getting paid, sometimes it's worth it to ask your clients to make a phone call, whether it's calling the insurance company or calling their attorney and asking for some intervention. On the next slide, appeals and denial. So I talked a little bit about this. Oftentimes there's a peer review looking at different chart notes. So it might be that a nurse is hired for an insurance company and she looks at all the physical medicine and rehab claims that could put in, whether it's massage therapy, physical therapy, acupuncture, nursing, whatever. So she's going to look at those things, or he is going to look at those things and say, yes, the treatment was appropriate for condition. Yes, the treatment was effective. And usually they're looking for quality of life things. That's what the QOL stands for. So they want functional outcomes. And then, was the cost of the care reasonable? If any of those things are a no, they might deny the claim, and then you're stuck writing an appeal. I'm going to skip through a couple of those. Denials are not going to happen that often. Well, let's go to the second one. So common denials, bills for treatment outside the scope. We'll just buzz through these really quickly. So oftentimes, if someone thinks that you're doing something that's outside your scope of practice, I just got a phone call on one. And a massage therapist used a laser, cold laser, low-level light therapy, and they kicked it out of the system because they thought it was outside the scope. In the state that he was in, there was actually no information either way, but the insurance company will also might take the prerogative of just saying, even though it's legally not outside the scope, it's outside the scope for us to pay for it. So always make sure that the treatment that you're providing is within your scope of practice. And when you call the insurance company in the beginning, I gave you those 5 questions you want to ask. Make sure that those treatments are covered for the condition that the patient has. Also make sure that the services are authorized by that diagnosis, so exactly what I just said, that they're covered for the condition that the patient has. This is a really tricky one. Oftentimes you're billing on the same day, or they're getting massage therapy on the same day that they're getting physical therapy or chiropractic, so make sure that you're not billing for the same modalities on the same day. Whoever gets the bill in first will get paid. So you never want to be stuck in that situation. So educate your patients so that they know to schedule things on different days if they're receiving similar types of therapies for the same condition. And then bills for services beyond the standard of care. We don't have best practices or standards of care written for the massage therapy profession, but they might assume that we do. There are actually some that are written and stored in the standards warehouse, standards clearinghouse, that were not even written by massage therapists, so it might be good for you to go to the standards clearinghouse and see if there are any standards for care that you need to be aware of. But just make sure that your services are reasonable and necessary. That's the most important thing. Now, I'm going to talk about ethics for a few minutes here, and that's kind of the most important thing that I can tell you about. When is it okay not to chart is a good question to ask yourself. That would be never. So you always want to make sure that you're writing notes for the dates of service that you're providing. We are a healthcare modality, so it's absolutely imperative that we chart all of our healthcare sessions. When is it okay not to write reports? Never. So if you're getting a prescription or a referral from a primary care provider, you want to make sure you're corresponding with them. They are financially responsible for you, and you need to report back to them on the progress of your patients that you share. And can I charge more if I'm waiting to get paid? You can charge interest on your money. So I think most states have a 12% per year limit, so a 1% per month, and it can't be compound interest, so it's simple interest. So whatever the amount of the service, you can't charge interest on top of interest, for example. But that's one way that you actually can get charged more for waiting to get paid. But you can't actually beef up your fees just because you're waiting to get paid. That's a relationship that you have. On the next slide, we'll talk about a few other things. What you can actually do is provide a payment at time of service discount. So if you have a fee that reflects the cost of providing the billing service, that's okay, and then you pass on the savings to the people who pay at the time of service. So it's actually called a payment at time of service discount. It's not an add-on if you're providing an insurance billing situation. So that's how you need to phrase that if you actually charge different rates for insurance clients versus your cash clients. You want to make sure that you're charging the same amount for the same service. For example, if you're providing myofascial release work and someone's paying cash and someone's billing their insurance company, as long as you're providing the same service, you have to charge the same rate. You can't charge different rates for the same service. What you can do, again, is provide a payment and time of service discount. So that's the only way to get around that. You can't upcode. For example, if you know you'll get paid more for the manual therapy code versus the Swedish massage code, but you're really providing Swedish massage, you can't charge for the manual therapy code just because they'll pay more. So that's called upcoding, and it's actually considered insurance fraud, so that's illegal. You also can't rebate. What that means is if you get referrals from a chiropractor, for example, you can't kick them back a $20, $25 bonus because they're sending you referrals. That's called rebating, and that's illegal in every single state. So there are restrictions on how you can bill and how you can charge for your services. So just make sure that you always charge the same rate for the same service, that if you want to give people a payment at time of service discount, you absolutely may, but make sure that the amount of discount that they're getting, so the amount that, or let me say it a different way, the amount that the person whose services you're billing for, that increase in fee actually reflects the services that you're providing for billing. For example, it probably doesn't cost you $50 an hour to bill, so it wouldn't be fair to charge $150 for your billing service and then give people a $50 payment at time of service discount. Most insurance billing services are about a 10% fee. Sometimes it's 6%, sometimes it's 12%. So really you can only get away with about a 10% discount for payment and time of service. So make sure it's reasonable and that you can justify it should you get called out on it or audited for it. So that's everything that I have to tell you about insurance billing and making sure that you get paid. All the information that I provided for you today is in the book that I wrote. Actually, the 4th edition just came out a few weeks ago. So when I sent the bio in to Eric earlier, it was still the 3rd edition, but the 4th edition is now available. And it's published by Lippincott, Williams & Wilkins, and is available online or hopefully in your local bookstores. So the final slide is my website address. If you have any questions, you can email me or go to my website, and just really thank you so much for your time today and attending this web conference.
Okay, thank you very much, Diana, and congratulations on the 4th edition.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. If anybody wants to get information on the book, they can go to www.handsheal.com. So it's handsheal.com, and you can find out more information about the book there. Now, don't go anywhere. We're going to go into our Q&A session. We're going to take questions from the audience, and I just took a quick peek in the interface. I see there's tons of questions there. So Cliff Korn, my fantastic co-host, has been going through those questions and picking out the best ones. And so are you ready to answer a few questions, Diana?
I am. Thank you.
Okay. So are you there, Cliff?
I sure am.
All right. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, Eric. Diana, I can't get over it. Every time I hear you, I learn new stuff. And I think I've heard this presentation at least once before, but it's always more stuff. And it's apparently a whole lot of folks here. You've piqued their interest because we have a whole pile of questions. They're going to try to go through most of them and take out a lot of the duplicates here. And a lot of them have to do with CPT codes.
Okay.
And here's one person asked, how about the code 90210? I've heard of that one on TV.
Let's see.
Okay, now let's get to, I think that was a joke.
Oh, I'm getting it as I write it down. Oh, my God. I think that's a zip code.
Yeah, I believe that's right. But here's a serious one. What is the code for a narrative report, or is there a code for a narrative report?
There is not a code for a narrative report. There are no codes for reporting for massage therapy that are available to us. What I typically do with a narrative report is I just send an invoice to the attorney. So the attorney will pay it out of their retainer, usually, or pass the bill on to the doctor and take it off, or to pass the bill on to the client and take it off of the top when they finally get paid. So not something that you need a CPT code for.
Okay, and actually I think a lot of times lawyers, when they request reports, will include what they're willing to pay for them, too, on occasion. So. All right, here's a question from Orlando. Mary Beth would like to know how you actually go about filing something electronically. How do you set up for that? How do you, where do you go? What do you do if you want to make that happen?
That's a good question. So every insurance company will have their own systems for filing electronically, and sometimes an insurance company will actually go through a network. So if you get credentialed through a network, then they'll have their own format for doing it, but there is an electronic version of the CMS 1500 form. So that's the form that you want to use, and you'll fill that out on your computer and then attach it to whatever email you're sending off to the insurance company. So you want the electronic version of the CMS 1500 form.
Okay. I've combined a whole lot of questions here that all involve how one finds out the actual rates that they can charge for various CPT codes. Is there one place you can get that, or are there 100 places you have to go to get it?
That's not something that you're actually going to find. You don't want to do something called price fixing. There's a lot of legal issues about that, so we can't dictate a fee schedule and recommend that people use that for their billing. What you really have to do is set your own fees, and you can do that by asking people in your area what they're charging. So we could kind of do a little informal poll here and see what people charge, but you definitely don't want to mandate a fee schedule and then charge that, because you're going to get in trouble with price fixing.
I think avoiding getting in trouble is a lofty goal. Let's see. Oh, here's a good one. Can we ask the referring physician if we can use his or her NPI to be in network, even if the work is done outside of their office?
Oh, that's an interesting question. More likely than not, they will say no, because there has to be some supervision that takes place. It's already pretty sketchy in that you're getting supervision and they're never in the room with you. So to not even be in the same building with you, I'd say would be way outside their comfort zone or their ability to offer that. So I'd say no.
Okay. Could you, again, review what types of claims require a referral from the client's physician?
Anything that you're billing an insurance company for, I would say you want a prescription from a referring caregiver, some sort of primary care provider. So it depends on what the requirements are in your state. In Washington, our naturopaths can be primary care, our chiropractors can be primary care, and sometimes physical therapists can be primary care and write those prescriptions. So it really just depends on what the laws are in your state. There are very, very, very few insurance companies that will pay for massage that are self-referred. So I would just always ask for a prescription and pretty much count on not getting any self-referred patients, because it's rare.
I think that's one we can take to the bank. Hopefully. Or literally. Here's a question, from the gorgeous Lake Tahoe area. This person has heard that, this involves liens, that to actually get a lien, she thought you had to go to small claims court to file that. And so your information surprised her. Is this something new, or is it not true that small claims court is required to file a lien?
You do not need to go to small claims court to file the lien. You might have to go to small claims court to act upon the lien once someone fails to pay. But to file it, no, you go to the county. There's usually a fee. So it's usually about $7 to $10 for the first page and $5 to $7 for the second page. So oftentimes there's margin requirements. They're very specific about the form that you use to file a lien, but it always is done at the county government office.
Okay, super. Here's a great question. If someone is submitting a workers' comp bill and it's been approved for 6 visits, how long do you have to submit the actual bill for the claim?
Oh, that's a good question. There are so many different situations that come to mind. I think as long as the claim is open, you can still file the bills, but I wouldn't take too many risks with that. I would definitely not want to wait longer than 30 days. You can, but if the case is already closed or the file is closed in any way, you're going to be out of luck. Okay. I'm getting instructions on locking up here. Okay. Thank you.
And I think personally, I've always found that the sooner you can start billing, the sooner you can find what issues you have, so you're not avoiding payment or delaying payment. So.
That's a really good thing to say, Cliff, because I think if you do file after the very first session, you're going to get a lot of information that's going to help you file from then on.
Waiting doesn't help a thing.
Nope.
Yeah, there are several questions, and people said, how do they actually contract with the insurance company, or how do they become part of this process? I guess it goes to the bigger question, how does one actually start getting involved with insurance?
You contact the insurance company directly, and you ask for their provider relations department, and you ask if they are credentialing massage therapists. And sometimes they'll say yes, and we'll send you the forms. They'll send you a whole packet of information and forms to fill out. Or they might say, we contract for that service with a network. Here's the network that you can approach to get credentialed for this particular insurance company. So some of the networks might take on 2, 3, 4, 5 different insurance companies. They're kind of the middle person. So they credential providers, and then they sell those contracts to the various insurance companies. But call directly to the provider relations department of the insurance company.
Great advice. Another question, and I'm going to try to keep we're approaching the end of the time here, but I want to make sure we get as many as we can here. If you have a basic prescription for massage therapy, can you bill something like craniosacral therapy under 97140, or does the prescription have to call for that particular modality or any modality?
It's always good if the prescription is pretty open-ended on techniques. You don't want to have your techniques dictated to you, at least I don't. So I always ask that they just say massage therapy, and then it's up to me to decide what's within my scope, what's best for this particular client, what's best for this particular condition, and then I can use any of the tools in my toolbox. So ask for an open-ended prescription that just says massage therapy.
Wonderful. Diana, here's someone who said that she read that the 9 codes, the ones that we use for the initial evaluations, should be used only by physicians. And what was your opinion on that? And what might have changed that they would be useful for us also?
You know, it is a physician code, but there's no diagnosis attached to it. So what that allows us to do then is gives us an exam code where one doesn't exist. So there's no exam code for massage therapy. There are exam codes for many of the other professions. The physical therapy one also doesn't include a diagnosis. But we've had some pushback from the physical therapy associations in some states, but the physicians are much more open-ended about theirs. There's a lot less pushback on that, so as long as we're not using a code that includes a diagnosis and we're not diagnosing, it's the current code that I'm having the most success with. It could change. Let's hope that it doesn't. My hope actually is that we get our own exam codes. I think we need a little bit more research for that to happen. So fund the Massage Therapy Foundation. Let's get more research happening, and then we can get our own exam codes. But until then, I'm using the physician's code until I get the pushback that says I can't anymore.
Now you're talking. Couple more here. Does AIS fall under the 97112 CPT code?
I'm sorry, AIS? So active isolated stretching?
Yeah.
I would say that would be the 97112 code, yes. Absolutely.
Okay. Do you need to include a modifier when using CPT codes?
There are no modifiers for the kind of work that we're doing. So what's nice is you can totally ignore the modifier section of the CPT code book because that thing is a mess.
And that'll save you a lot of time.
Will save you a lot of time. No modifiers.
I think we're going to finish up with a real softball question here that looks like it was right up your alley, saying that this is an information-packed hour that I'd like to access in writing. Is there a publication that has this information?
What an opening for me to plug my book one more time. So absolutely everything that I told you today is in the newest edition of Hands Heal, Communication, Documentation, and Insurance Billing for Manual Therapists.
I think this has been fantastic. I'm delighted that we've been able to do this, and that I really want to thank you for your presentation. Appreciate that you taking the time to share your knowledge and expertise with us, Diana. And to our listeners, please don't go anywhere. Diana's going to go into the chat room to answer any questions you have. So please grab a glass of water or other beverage of your choice, and we'll meet you in the chat room.
All right. Thank you very much.
Now, what are you thinking, Diana? Sign in using your Facebook or Twitter account so we can see your face and so other participants in the call can connect with you more easily. And to wrap up, I'm going to turn the mic back to our host, Eric Brown.
Thank you very much, Cliff, for taking care of those questions for us and monitoring the Q&A area through the presentation. I really appreciate you being here tonight and helping us out. And we'll see you again at the live conference, November 14th to 16th. You're going to be back and co-hosting some more. Is that right?
It's a fact. I enjoy doing it, and I thank you for having me.
All right. So I just want to let people on the line know that you can take a quiz if you are a registered participant. Take the time right now to take the quiz to get your CE certificate. So this is a certificate you can print out for your continuing education reporting. The session is NCB TMB approved for 1.5 credits. And as well, make sure you download the notes that are here on the page. Again, just go to the buttons down. You'll see below the broadcast screen here. Take the quiz, if you see that button there, to take the quiz for your CE certificate, and you'll see a notes button there as well. I'm just told that the mind map isn't there right now. We'll set that up shortly for you. This is a great mind map that was developed by the great people at ABMP for us for this presentation. And if you haven't already registered for the World Massage Conference, you can do it now and get 50% off the $197 registration fee. And you'll get both the spring and fall conferences. That's over 50 hours of continuing education for under $100. Everything is recorded, and you'll have access until March 31st, 2012. Replays, audio downloads, and CE quizzes. So that's plenty of time to watch the presentations, download the audios, take the CE quizzes, and print off any notes that are provided by the presenters. Make sure, too, that you print out the fall schedule and schedule out any of the live presentations you want to attend between November 14th and 16th. It's a great opportunity to connect personally with some of the top educators in the industry. And before we go, I need to thank all our sponsors who really make all this possible. Massage Envy is our global sponsor. Massage Envy is the leading employer of massage therapists in the United States. To discover the benefits of choosing Massage Envy as your career, visit their website at www.massageenvycareers.com. And we'd like to thank all our daily sponsors, the ABMP, Massage Warehouse, Massage Today, Bon Vital, BioFreeze, Massage Magazine, and the Upledger Institute. Thanks again so much, Diana, for tonight's presentation. Really appreciate you sharing your information with us, and you're going to go into the chat room for a little bit right now. So if you still have questions, anyone, go into the chat room. That's the place to ask them. And I'll have this replay up for you if you want to listen to it again to get the information and take notes for 24 hours. And then it's going to be archived for the paid registrants. And hopefully we'll see everyone here for our next pre-conference broadcast, which is next Thursday, November 10th, when we're going to have the legendary manual therapist Eric Dalton online to discuss the dynamic body. So hopefully we will see you all back here next week. So thank you very much for taking your time out here tonight at the World Massage Conference.
Thank you, Eric.
It's been a pleasure, Diana.